Well, as we start the morning off, we got some weather we're monitoring in the region. A severe thunderstorm warning has just been issued for Miami County on the Kansas side of the state line. You can see that little supercell moving east of Ottawa right now, basically parallel with I-35. So just note that as you get your morning started here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Also, some thunderstorms up north of the Leavenworth area as I look at that right now. So just keep an eye on that. Just some pop-up storms around the region so far this morning, but nothing like what we had a couple of nights ago. Meantime, there was a storm in KCK yesterday, and that storm came courtesy of the voter. The voter in KCK soundly rejected the district's $420 million plan to improve and build new schools. This is now, think about it. You go back to last fall, and you have had multiple elections in the region involving taxes, and all of them have gone down in flames. There was one for Jackson County on the ballot back in November. There was, of course, the Royals Chiefs tax just last month. And now flip it to the other side of the state line, and voters overwhelmingly, just like the Chiefs and the Royals vote, 16-point margin, rejected a request to issue $420 million in bonds for major facility improvements in the KCK public schools. Now, why? Well, it would have increased property taxes. An example, for a resident who owns a home valued at $150,000, and let's be honest, how many of those are really out there anymore? Like even your entry level in parts of KCK, you're probably looking at a couple $100,000. For a resident who owns a home valued at $150,000, the yearly property tax bill was expected to go up $146.63. If you're in a home that's valued at $150,000, then you're going to feel that pinch of $150 a year. So there's two things I think going on here. People are just squeezed right now. And the government is taking more of their money. You know, inflation is secretly a great thing for the government because they get more of your money through things like sales taxes, right? The government is able to collect more of your money. If the same goods you were buying 4 years ago that were worth $100 are now worth $120, they're collecting sales taxes now on $120 versus $100. So they're living high on the hog. The government is doing great. That's why the government has been one of the largest job creators in the country for the better part of 24 months. And one of the biggest reasons the job report missed expectations last month was because the government, not just the feds, by the way, we're talking state and local as well, the government did not hire at the same rate it had been. The government had been adding, when you're talking about fed, state, local, on average like 50,000 jobs a month over the last year. I think they added 10,000 jobs last month when those numbers came out last week. So the broader point here is that the average person's getting squeezed while the government's doing great. And KCK came to the voters and they said in part, hey, we want another $150 to your property taxes, when most people in the region have already seen pretty large increases in their property tax bill. I mean, I know I can speak to that firsthand when you talk about the county, the school, the city. They're all taking a little more and it's adding up. Even if their mill rate's going down, they're taking more money because the value of your home has gone up tremendously the last 3 to 4 years. So they act like they're doing you a favor. Oh, our mill rate's down. Okay, you're getting more money. Stop with the dog and pony show. So this plan in KCK, which got voted down yesterday. Now, turnout wasn't great. 8% of registered voters participated in the single-issue special election. But the plan called for 3 elementary and 2 middle schools to be built. Some additional costs included a $15 million aquatic center, a $20 million expansion of early childhood capacity, up to $20 million for a new main public library, and $44.5 million to cover deferred maintenance. I know that all schools need upgrades in many cases when you look at the public schools in the country. But, I think a lot of people probably said $15 million aquatic center, $20 million for a new library. I'm good. I'm just trying to make ends meet. I'm just trying to, get out of Costco for under a couple $100. I'm good on the KCK Public Schools Aquatic Center this time around. Please don't ask me for the Aquatic Center or the $20 million library. When half the kids, if you told them what the Dewey Decimal System was, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about. So this is a classic example, another example of the voter here in the last few months saying, no, you've got enough of my money. I'm not giving you more. And it's not just exclusive to Jackson County. You've seen it now on the other side of the state line with this vote in KCK yesterday. So good on them. I also think that we are reaching a tipping point here where the taxpayer is saying, you guys keep asking for more. You never give any back, by the way. The schools, and I say this as somebody who has every intention to use the public school systems that we are offered, but they never give any back, right? They're never like, we actually have a little left over in the budget. It's always more. It's always more, build, build, build. And at some point, the taxpayer is going to say enough. And I do think there's a broader movement here and a broader point that you've seen around Kansas City, which is people are saying enough. You, the government, whether you tie this back to Jackson County last fall, the Chiefs and Royals this year, now KCK, people have said you've got enough, figure it out. I'm done giving you more. And $150 a month or $150 a year on a $150,000 home is not nothing, because if you're in a home that's worth $300,000, right? Run-of-the-mill home, average home these days, you're talking about property taxes pushing $300 a year in this case. So the voter was done. And I do think that there's a learning lesson here for anybody in public office right now at the city or the county level. If you are going to ask for more tax dollars from your residents, damn, it better be compelling. You better have a damn good reason and a damn good sales pitch to, in this environment, ask your voter for more of their hard-earned dollars when you have taken more money and brought in more money in most cases than you ever have in the history of your municipality or your county because of what the last 3 years has done. 913-408-7957. We will talk more about this throughout the morning and react to it here on KCMO 95.7 FM. In 20 minutes, we are going to be joined by Sarah Green, KU student who joined us last week and caught us up on the situation there at KU as it related to the anti-Israel protests. Well, they went away, but they're back. She sent me a text last night saying they're back. Got some photos and the whole deal. So she's going to join us at 6:30. Now, why is a college student joining us at 6:30? Because she's got a 7:30 final. So pulling an all-nighter, joining us at 6:30 to give us the rundown on how the anti-Israel protests are back at KU after a few days off. They didn't like the rain, so they wanted to make sure that they took a few days off for the rain, and they're back in the saddle now. We've got a good weather in the days to come, so I guess they are back with their little encampment there at KU. She'll give us the latest coming up at 6:30 on KCMO. And in the meantime, I don't want to keep dogging Kristi Noem, but she's doing it to herself. I'll explain next on KCMO. This one's for you, Cricket. Wanted dead or alive. Preferably dead. When Kristi Noem's your owner. That's right. Oh, man, it is good to be here. Happy Hump Day Wednesday morning on KCMO 95.7 FM. Some of you, obviously Kristi Noem has been one of the biggest stories here in recent days after we found out that she killed her dog, Cricket, 14-month-old dog, after The dog was not so good on a pheasant hunt and then also attacked a neighbor's chicken. So she took old Cricket to the gravel pit, and shot him and killed him. And then a couple of goats followed into the whole deal. So she wrote about that in her memoir. And then she also wrote about this interaction with Kim Jong-un that apparently never actually took place. So, I mean, she has got herself in a world of hurt right now. She has destroyed her chances of being Donald Trump's VP pick. And some of you have said on the text line and reached out on social media and been like, I'm sick of hearing about Kristi Noem, or I'm sick of Kristi Noem. It's like, okay, will someone tell Kristi Noem that? Because Kristi Noem has gone through interview after interview after interview in recent days, making a complete fool of herself. I mean, you know, we played for you the clip earlier this week. She went on CBS's Face the Nation, and that did not go well for Kristi Noem. She just keeps doing these interviews. And it continued yesterday with Stuart Varney on Fox Business, where she basically was like, yeah, we're going to stop the interview. Take a listen.
Still think that you are in line to be Trump's vice president?
No, it's up to Donald Trump. He's the only person who will decide this. He's the only person who will decide. And I do speak to him.
May I ask what he said to you about being vice president?
No, I never tell anybody my personal conversations
Did
with
the dog story
President
come up
Trump.
in a conversation with Trump?
I talk to President Trump all the time.
About the dog?
About a lot of things. And right now, I tell you what, he is being persecuted in a political witch hunt in this court case. So I'm proud of him about how tough he is and how well he is doing.
Did you bring up the dog?
Yes, enough, Stuart.
Did you
this
bring
interview
up the dog
is
with Trump?
ridiculous, what you were doing right now.
So
you need to stop. It is.
Okay.
It is.
We'll
Let's talk about some real topics that Americans care about.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, well, of course we are.
We do thank you for being with us. Right. I know I pressed hard, but that's what people are talking about to this day.
Yeah.
Governor Noem, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet.
We'll be back in just a moment with the opening bell for more.
I mean, it's funny how you can be a little douchey, but when you have the British accent, it's like kind of sounds okay. You know, at least here in the U.S. it does. I'm sure it means nothing over there, but there's something about that little accent that, you know, if you're kind of being a jerk, it just doesn't sound as bad as if I was doing it or if you were doing it. It's just kind of how the accent works, John.
Yo, Alex, why do you kill that lady? No, that's how we sound in America.
Yeah, exactly. So
say it, Alex.
You know, I hear Stuart Varney. I mean, that's a reasonable question. If she's talked to Donald Trump in recent days about being his VP, everybody wants to know, what'd you guys talk about with Cricket? Like, how did Cricket work into the conversation here? And that's not a bad question from Stuart Varney. And she's like, I want to talk about policy. It's like, no, you cannot do an interview days after it comes out that you shot the dog. That's all anybody's talking about. You're in line potentially to be a VP pick. And then you're like, no, I'm not here to talk about shooting my dog. What do you think this is? It's like, okay, then just go into hiding. And that's why I said last week, what Kristi Noem should have done in hindsight, because of how disastrous these interviews have been for her, is go into hiding for a couple of weeks. Or the better idea I offered up to Kristi Noem, and apparently she needs me as her PR person because the people she's got around her stink, she should have gone on CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday holding a puppy. Now, CBS would have said, oh, we can't have a puppy on set. You know, we can't have you making a mockery of the interview. You don't even tell them. When you get set to do the interview, you whip the puppy out from under your seat and you start doing the interview holding a puppy in your hand right next to your, face. You literally hold the puppy, you let it lick you, you let it kiss you. You just look like a human being who loves puppies. That's what Kristi Noem should have done in any of these interviews that she did. Now, it's not easy. Like yesterday was a Fox News interview that was in studio in New York, so that's not possible. But the Face the Nation interview was like her on camera somewhere else, probably in South Dakota. So that would have made all the sense in the world for Kristi Noem. But she's got terrible PR people around her, and she does not have the pulse of what she should be doing right now. And she is digging a deeper grave, just like she did for old Cricket there. 913-4087-957. It's 625 on a Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Like, even if you're okay with what she did, even if you understand what she did, you've got to admit she can no longer be the VP pick. Could you imagine the commercials that would be run to suburban voters all over the country about the VP dog killer? You couldn't have it. Even if you are like, I understand why she did what she did. I get it. I am sympathetic to it. You've got to also at the same time admit she can't be the Veep. It's impossible. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Mike. He's in Kansas City. Mike, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah, boil this down to the very basics of the situation. People like dogs. They don't like politicians.
Well, yeah.
Trump's got a 14% approval rate of politicians. Everybody likes dogs, even the bad ones. You know, people put them in pounds and stuff, but whatever. I mean, that's the bottom line on all this. And she needs to get out in front of this. You know, I would – you know, she needs to make almost a joke out of it some way. You know, like, well, you know, I have one dead dog. Hillary's got 40 dead coworkers or something like that. I don't know.
Well, you made yourself laugh, Mike.
Like
well
dogs.
done. Well done. No,
Yeah.
Listen, that's oh, man. Anytime you can tie in your joke to Hillary Clinton, you know, just seemingly knowing dead people. I see dead people. That's probably worth your time. You're right about that. But it's such a good point. People, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't really matter. People inherently don't like their politicians. They love their dogs. That's it. So if you're talking about choosing between one or the other, 9 out of 10 times, if not 95 out of 100 times, people are going to pick the pooch. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what they're going to do. So that is an outstanding point by Mike here as we approach 6:30 on KCMO. The Chiefs are not going to get rid of Rashee Rice after this latest incident, and nor should they. Let me explain. If you didn't see what's going on, Rashee Rice finds himself in another legal problem. Rashee Rice is a suspect in an alleged assault that injured a man at a Dallas nightclub earlier this week. Now, of course, I'm going to hold the reservations to find out what exactly we're talking about here when it comes to assault. Did he, punch a guy who was talking smack? Like, what exactly happened? I don't know. We don't know as far as I know.
I believe the guy was characterized as a photographer in the report I read.
Okay, I did see that.
Did you
That's
see
right,
that?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we got a photographer.
So that adds potential for invading his space, I suppose, in this scenario.
Yes.
What's a plausible deniability or whatever I'm trying to say there, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe if a guy's in his face, I don't know.
We don't know.
Still no excuse, but
there
may have been some provocation. That's what I'm trying to say. There we go.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so could be a photographer, could be somebody invading his space. We don't have all the details yet. But we know that Rashee Rice, who just, a few weeks back found himself, of course, on a Dallas freeway doing 120 miles an hour in a Lamborghini with his buddies, resulted in a crash, injured other people. Thank goodness nobody died. Just a few weeks later, has this alleged altercation that injured a man, a photographer, at a Dallas nightclub earlier in the week. Now, is that some guy with his phone? Is that a guy, paparazzi? Don't know. No idea. But that's what we know right now. So there's no doubt that Rashee Rice, probably not the best dude. But we knew that. Yesterday I started to see things circulate, which were reports from the 2023 NFL draft that talked about Rashee Rice and what kind of a guy he allegedly was. And here's one report on Rashee Rice. This is a scouting report on Rashee Rice from before the NFL draft last year when the Chiefs took him in the second round. Says here, Rashee Rice has the size, 6 foot 205, the speed, 4.42 40-yard dash, athletic ability, and production to be a high draft choice. At least one team, however, has removed Rashee Rice from its draft board because of behavioral issues. He's talented, but not a good dude, one personnel director said. Well, those are the guys that Andy Reid likes to take a chance on. Andy Reid has made a career using these guys and trying to put them in an environment where they do have some wiggle room, but they've got to work within the guardrails. And notice how everything was pretty much okay for Rashee Rice as far as we knew until he basically got back with his boys and got back out on his own after the football season. once he appeared to lose the structure of football and the structure of the Chiefs and the day in, day out minutia of being an NFL player is when apparently he started acting like a knucklehead. This is what Andy Reid does. These are the guys that he likes to rehab personally in some degree and, try to use to his advantage while also, yes, helping them as well. Tyreek Hill is case in point, 5th-round draft choice. The guy had first-round talent, but of course he had a slew of issues, including, beating a then-pregnant girlfriend going back to his time at Oklahoma State. So he's always been a guy who was willing to take a chance on players like this. And when you've got the Chiefs culture and you have Andy Reid and you have Patrick Mahomes and you have those guys as kind of the face of your franchise, and Travis Kelce to a lesser degree, but certainly he's part of that conversation. When you have that stability at the top, you're more likely, to me, to be able to take chances like this on guys like Rashee Rice. The Chiefs are not going to go out there and cut Rashee Rice this week. It's not going to happen. And, you might have this purity test and say, no, I will only have the best guys on my team. We will not have knuckleheads on this team. It's a 53-man roster. Trust me, there's more knuckleheads than most of us realize. Welcome to the NFL. That's just how it goes. Rashee Rice should pay a price. He will be suspended, I would say, up to 8 games. But the Chiefs are not going to let him go. And frankly, I don't believe they should let him go. I think he's better off staying around this team and trying to learn and improve himself as a man by being around some of the leaders on this team. I wouldn't cut him at all, John.
No, the Chiefs give plenty of chances, like the Kareem Hunt case.
Yeah.
Now, prior to Andy Reid coming here, I heard Herm Edwards talking about players like this on a team, and he called them my guys. And the coach would have to say, hey, that's your guy. Cover him, make sure he's in bed in time, that stuff. And they would assign like a coach to watch a guy, but you can't have too many my guys on a team.
Yeah, yes. You can only have a couple.
Right.
Yes.
And so the Chiefs have managed that well, seemingly.
Yeah. Back-to-back Super Bowls would suggest that. And I think they have a lot of high-character guys as well. Say what you want about Chris Jones, who was cursing at the Super Bowl rally. That was a total mess. But Chris Jones appears to be a high-character guy. Pacheco, high-character guy. You can go down the list and find a lot of high-character guys on this team. And to use that Herm Edwards analogy, the Chiefs have a couple of my guys. Rashee Rice is one of those, clearly. And as long as you only have a couple of them, you got the talent, you work around them, and you try to make them better as human beings. I want to see Rashee Rice on this team because I want to see him grow as an individual and let the legal side take care of itself.
They did let go of one of them, Willie Gay. They let him walk.
That's right.
He was a my guy. Another one now.
Yes, they've got room for another one. Or maybe you got, Rashee Rice counts for 2 my guys. He could qualify for 2. So now you've got to just make sure that you've got the right infrastructure around him and around this team to allow a guy like Rashee Rice to bounce back. And I'm hopeful that he will. 913-408-7957. Now, something else comes out about this assault that makes it worse than it currently is being reported. It's a completely different story. But if you thought it was okay to have Rashee Rice on the team after going 120 on the freeway, you can't say hitting a photographer is the straw that broke the camel's back. So many times you hear people in political power talk about things that they can do for seniors, right? You hear them talk about, how are we saving Social Security? We'll never touch your Social Security check. You'll hear them talk about, capping property taxes for seniors. That was a big deal in Missouri, right? The last year or so. But rarely do you hear the same people talk about what they're doing for the younger generation, in large part because the younger generation is less likely to go out there and vote as frequently, as often, as at high of a rate as the older generation. So the politicians never really appeal to the younger generation from the standpoint of actually doing things directly for them. Now, you'll see like some of the crazy stuff happening on college campuses. You'll see people acquiesce and appease those folks. You will see some of that. But I'm talking direct policy geared towards helping people of a certain age. I'm not just talking about appealing to people of a certain age based on how crazy your ideas are or, screaming about, universal basic income and things like that. So this was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and the headline was Gen Z sinks deeper into debt. Now, Gen Z is the youngest generation of people who are now entering the workforce. The generation behind the millennials are Gen Zers. And it notes here in the Wall Street Journal, the rising debt load largely reflects a surge in prices for food and shelter at the start of their careers, coupled with a larger percentage of Gen Z who graduated with student loans. The average credit card balance for 22 to 24-year-olds is $2,800, compared with an average inflation-adjusted balance of $2,200 in the same period 10 years ago. Younger people with higher debt are more delinquent on credit card payments and need to rely on family for help if they lose their job, say economists and financial advisors. They also often delay life milestones, including home ownership and marriage, say these economists. And they go on to give various examples of people who are dealing with this. So it would seem to me the answer here is to figure out, one, how to make college cheaper. Of course, that conversation has devolved into who's bailing out my student loans, which is a complete scam and does nothing in terms of figuring out how to reduce the price. You can bail out every single student loan in America tomorrow. And for the young people entering college this fall, it does nothing for them. That's why it's the worst possible answer to the crisis, because it fixes absolutely nothing with the core issue, which is the cost of college. The number one thing that should be done is getting the government out of the student loan business, but we'll save that for another day. So that's step one. And then you look at it and you say, okay, food prices. I mean, we know inflation has skyrocketed, compounded 20% over the last 3-4 years. And that's been hugely problematic for young people getting out on their own. And there are cultural consequences to this as well. I mean, we're seeing it play out in real time. We're seeing people delay marriage. And I don't think that's exclusively because of costs. I do think that there's a moral struggle going on right now, culturally, where people don't want to get married. You've got guys who want to go on dating apps all day and just swipe. Which way is it when it's a yes? I don't know if it's left or right. I've never had a dating app. Left is yes or right is yes?
I think it's right.
Right is yes. Okay.
I've also never had to use an app like
that. Okay. Well, we're turning into John, so we hope John's right. So someone will text it in. Someone will text it in. But either way, you get the point. Guys just want to swipe until they can, sadly, bet as many people as possible. And women are always looking for something better. There's always a guy maybe taller, making a little more money, better head of hair. And then they're also, have been ingrained to be just job, wake up at 30 and say, okay, now it's time to maybe get married and have a kid. And by then it becomes more difficult. That's just a reality of the situation. So you've got these economic issues combined with these cultural issues, and they're smashing head on, and they're creating a crisis for Gen Z. And it will play a role in November. I know we don't really think about the youngest generation as much because they don't show up to vote as frequently as older generations do, but they will play a role here. And how you appeal to them and their wants and needs is going to be key. And I don't think it's as simplistic as just saying, I'll bail out your student loans, vote for me. I'm going to give the younger generation more credit than that. And maybe that's shame on me, but I'm going to give them, and I say it as a millennial, more credit than that and think that their wants and their needs are deeper than these single issues of student loans and abortions. As they get into the real world, as they experience the rent hikes, the food hikes, credit card debt, student loan debt, I think they'll realize the system is broken and is not in any way set up for them, like in large part it was their parents. I hear so many people say to me, you should have seen the interest rates back in the late 70s, early 80s. Okay, but as a percentage of one's income, the cost of buying that home, the cost of buying that condo was a fraction of what it is right now when adjusted for inflation. So the actual principal on the home was not nearly as big a percentage of one's paycheck 45 years ago as it is today. So spare me the whole thing about, interest rates were double back then. Yeah, and the principal of the house was also fractionally what it is today when you compare it to household income. Same thing with property taxes, insurance, and all those things. It was a different world. And young people, the Gen Zers in particular, are starting to wake up to that. So whoever appeals to them, and that could be for, governor's race, that could be for, obviously, president, whoever appeals to them on a core level, and also, I think, really acknowledges the amount of damage the last 3 years in particular have done to them. I mean, they're learning Economics 101, even if they studied gender theory in college. They're learning it now in the real world, and they're learning it the hard way. And I believe they're waking up to it as well, in part. 913-408-7957 as we approach 8 o'clock here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Kids aren't really as expensive as people make them out to be. At least they don't have to be as expensive as people make them out to be. 8:05 as the thunderstorms move through and out of the Kansas City region. It is great to be here on KCMO 95.7 FM. This was official this week from the CDC. We mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when it started getting reported, but now the CDC has confirmed. I know, it's the CDC. You can't trust them as far as you can throw them. But I'll take their facts for face value on this one at least. I won't on other things, but at least in this one I'll take their word for it. U.S. fertility rates have fallen to 1.617 births per woman, the lowest level in a century, according to the CDC. Lowest in a century. Replacement rate is 2.1. We are at 1.617. Lowest in this country in 100 years. That is the biggest crisis we are facing. It's not the climate change nonsense. It's not, world peace. Literally, the crisis is that we are not making enough of ourselves. That's how countries, that's how, cultures, societies end up in self-destruction mode when you literally do not replace yourself at the rate needed. It doesn't matter what your immigration policy is. That's meaningless and irrelevant if you literally are not replacing yourselves anywhere close to the rate that is needed. So when you hear people talk about what the crisis is in the country, that's the biggest crisis. It's not like whatever your political pet project is. Yes, we've got those as well. We've got fiscal crises and things of that nature. But the existential crisis we face is this. Because it's not like this is a one-off. We've been on this road and trending in this direction for years. And there are reasons for it. I think a lot of those reasons are cultural and societal and some of the things that we just talked about, the things that we devalue now as a race and as a country versus the things that we value are very paganistic in nature, sad to say. It's kind of where we're at. But I see a lot of excuse making as well. And this is like across the political aisle. Oh, these kids are so damn expensive. Now, they can be if you send them to a $90,000 a year private college, but hopefully you only do that if you got the means to do it. They can be if you, choose to do private school, although there are options that are cheaper as well if you want to take that route. But, as somebody who's got a 5, 3, and 8-week-old, yes, the delivery can be expensive depending on what insurance you've got. But, once you got them, at least in my experience, these first few years, they eat cheese slices, they eat yogurt, they eat chicken nuggets. They're not that expensive. The clothes are, once again, if you want to give them expensive clothing and bags and things like that to toddlers, that's your prerogative. But they're really not that expensive at the younger age unless you want to make your life expensive for them. If you want to sign them up for every dance competition at 4 years old, known to mankind, that's one thing. But, Mark's got 3 girls. I've got 3 girls. They're not cheap, but I don't know, Mark, what do you think? The notion that they're super expensive, I haven't seen that just yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Maybe when they get to be teenagers.
Well, yes, especially as girls. I'll reserve that right when, you got to buy them a lot more things as teenagers. But thus far, when people say I'm not having kids because they're too damn expensive, you don't know what you're talking about, at least in the early years. And hopefully, by the time they're teenagers, your household income has gone up to the point where you can afford some of those things that they may need as they get older and they get a little needier. I will, yes, hold reservation until they become teens. That is a fair point. But overall, I think that's largely excuse making from people who just don't want to have them. And that's fine. Not everybody should or needs to be a parent or wants to be or is set to be. There's no criticism on that either way. But just don't do the excuse thing of, well, just too expensive. Can't do it in this world. No, you can. And that's something I also have heard from people who are more traditional in nature. I'm not going to bring my kids into this hellscape. No, actually, you should. Because we theoretically should want to reproduce more people who are raised in a traditional setting. We face two existential crises. One is the birth rate, and the other one, in large part, is the fact that, we continue to have way, 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 way too many broken homes. And that is across the ideological spectrum as well. 913-4087-95.7 as we hit 8:10 on a Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Steven is in Kansas City. He's first up. Hey, Steven, good morning.
Hey, Pete, good morning, buddy, man. Let's bring that minor league hockey championship home soon. I don't think we've got much of a problem at all. I think you're being a little too down on this. As long as we keep, as Joe Biden keeps taking Venezuelan parolees into this country, all of our job growth came from them. So we got no problems at all. We'll just find all of our wonderful newcomers to fill the birth rate.
Yeah, and Mayor Q will take him out of Denver and bring him over to KC there, right?
What could possibly go? This is the radical liberals' dream is a birth rate that keeps on decreasing. You use less fossil fuels.
That's the other. You bring up a good point there, Stephen, where a lot of people, have been sold this bill of goods where the world's going to end. What was it? Was it Greta Thunberg who predicted the world was going to end, or we were going to be underwater by like 2024 or something? She had some insane prediction. I've got to find it here real quick. But when you're scaring young people into this belief that humanity is on the verge of ending, that's also how you end up in a situation where people are like, what's the point? We're all going to die. I think where is it? Here it is. Greta Thunberg posting an article in 2018 with the headline, Top Climate Scientist. Humans will go extinct if we don't fix the climate change issue by 2023. Here we are. I don't know about you. I'm going to slap myself in the face a little bit. Yep, I'm really here. Okay, just making sure this isn't a dream or something, and I haven't gone on to the afterlife. But no, I'm here. I felt that slap nice and good on my own face. I could have John or Mark come in and slap me as well to make sure it's really good. But it's here. It's here. We're good. David in Kansas City. What's up, David?
Hey, you are, Pete. Let's go, Brandon.
All right, buddy. Let's go, Brandon.
Anyway, I think I've got a clue about why the birth rate's decreasing. It's because the liberals think that men can have babies, and that's just not going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, it also is problematic when we can't at least all agree on the fact that, men cannot get pregnant. Do we want to go down the laundry list of things that we talk about, on that issue right now? I think we all understand that it kind of is imperative to be of the belief that men and women are needed for different reasons to create children for the next generation. And if we can't be on the same page on that front, what have we got? What have we got? 913-408-7957. Voters are getting smarter. I know some of you don't want to give them credit for that, but I firmly believe they are, and we saw evidence of that yesterday in KCK. Voters in Kansas City, Kansas, rejected a $420 million plan for facility improvements with the KCK public schools. This was rejected. 8% of voters showed up to participate in the single-issue special election, and the measure only got 42% of the vote. 58 said no, so that's a 16-point loss for the vote yes side on $420 million in bonds for the KCK schools. Now, I don't deny that some of the schools need physical upgrades there in KCK. I'm sure that's true. But like everything over the last few years, voters are finally saying enough when it comes to the government reaching into their pockets. And that's what you saw here yesterday. Now, what was this going to mean for the KCK resident? Well, for a resident who owns a home valued at $150,000, the yearly property tax bill was expected to go up by $146. Now, you might think that's nothing, but if you own a home that's worth $150,000, that matters to you. So if you own a now median home of, let's say, $300,000, give or take, you're talking about a $300 increase in your property taxes, and that's on top of property taxes that have likely already gone up the last few years because the price of homes have skyrocketed. Even if KCK has decreased or, maintained their mill rate, property taxes have gone up in the majority of cases. So you have people who are paying more property taxes than ever before. They're paying more sales taxes than ever before because the price of everything has gone up. Everything has a sales tax attached to it. So if inflation's up 20% the last 3 years, just do the math. You're also paying 20% more in sales tax revenues to your city, to your county, and to your state. It's a scam. The government's gotten more of your money over the last 3 years than they ever have. Inflation is a secret tool that helps the government because it allows them to collect more in revenues. Now, it's hurting them because they're paying a tremendous amount on their debt, at least at the federal level, but leave that out of it. When it comes to your local cities and counties and states, they're living high on the hog. They are flush with cash thanks to crappy federal policy. Because they collect more. If your groceries used to be $100 and now they're $120, they're collecting money on $120 in food costs versus $100. So it's good for them. So now the voter in KCK yesterday said, you know what? No, we don't need a $15 million aquatic center, which was part of this $420 million cost. I don't think we need a $20 million new public library. I don't think we need necessarily, they said, a $20 million expansion of early childhood capacity. That's what came out yesterday from the voter in KCK. And you have seen issue after issue like this get turned down by voters across the region. Of course, last month was the Chiefs Royals tax that we know went up in flames, also by 16 points. Jackson County also voted down a sales tax last November. So you're seeing this across the state line and across the region, which means governments are going to have to get smarter. I remember a time, and that time probably ended about 4 years ago now, when you could put anything related to schools on a ballot, and it would pass. Because the vote yes side would go around and say, don't you care about the kids? Don't you care about our future? You don't want to risk our future, do you? Give us another $100 million for the schools. Like, that's how it was always pitched. And for years, people went along with it. But now they finally have said, it's not that simple to just say, hey, care about the kids. Give us a $420 million bond for facility improvements in KCK. It's actually what's in here. What matters? What do we need versus what is a want? I would argue a $15 million aquatic center for the KCK public schools is a nice want, but like many KCK residents, Kansas City residents, and, American residents right now, they're pinching pennies. They're tightening up the belt buckle a little bit. The $15 million aquatic center is not on the short list today. Whatever your household's version is of that $15 million aquatic center, you're not getting it. So why should the government get it with your money? Even if, your kids may at some point use it. I don't know. I was in a public school K through 12. I never stepped foot in an aquatic center. Maybe I'm in the minority there with that, but I don't remember anything involving an aquatic center during my days in the public schools. And what I would love to see is the graduation rates and the grades of KCK students and say, why don't we do whatever needs to be done to focus on those before we start worrying about the damn aquatic center? Can we get the GPAs up? And then the aquatic center might be a nice icing on the cake, but it's really not a necessity in this environment, in that district right now. Tell me how that helps kids graduate. Tell me how it helps prepare them for the real world. Now, maybe, if you're the next Michael Phelps, it's a good thing for you, but how many of those are actually out there? Not all that many. So this is, I wasn't surprised that it lost yesterday, but I was surprised by how badly it went down in flames. Very similar to the Chiefs and Royals, who ended up, of course, losing that vote by 16 points, the same margin of loss of what we saw in KCK yesterday.